So now we have our history nugget. This is actually very cool. The oldest man-made artifact in Lancaster County and the most significant archaeological site in the northeastern United States. Right here, right in our backyard. The mysterious Petroglyphs of Safe Harbor with Adam Zurn. Adam Zurn is the owner of Uncharted Lancaster and also on the board of the Historic Preservation Trust of Lancaster County. Adam, I am very excited with what you're about to drop on our watchers and listeners. Take it away.
Hey, well, thanks, Ben and Jeff. It is great to be here. I appreciate the invitation today. Yeah, absolutely. This is without a doubt the most awe-inspiring area in the entire region. And as you mentioned, it is the oldest man-made artifact here in Lancaster County and the most significant archaeological site in northeastern Pennsylvania. And like you mentioned, it is the mysterious petroglyphs here on the Susquehanna, just below Safe Harbor Dam. And so it's pretty neat to go out and see these petroglyphs. There are definitely like three challenges to getting out there. One is you are just not going to drive your car over and just walk over and see it. You are going to need a canoe or a kayak to get out there. And as you can see out there, in the middle of the river somewhere. So definitely, just one challenge is getting out there to it. You've got the dam putting water out, so the currents can be pretty strong and just kind of navigating around the eddies that all the rocks and such create. There's a great photo of Big and Indian Rock. It looks pretty close, but they're about 100 yards apart there, just the depth of field there where the camera makes them look really close, but it's probably about 100 yards apart. The second challenge is, just finding them because as I've discovered with a lot of my research with Uncharted Lancaster is that Google often has no idea. So, some of your viewers, as they're watching this, they might be pulling up another tab and kind of Googling these petroglyphs. And, Google Maps drops a pin on this, what they call Big Indian Rock Island. But, it's not actually the right place. I visited that a few years ago when I was looking for these petroglyphs and discovered that, hey, this is not even close to the right location. And so you get out there in your kayak on the river and just finding these petroglyphs can be a real challenge because there are just scores of boulders all over the river in that area and just trying to find them. And then, the third challenge is, as you can see here in the video, is actually revealing the petroglyphs. And for that, you need a very special tool, and that's a sponge. And so you take your sponge and you get it wet and you rub your damp sponge, over the rock, and it reveals these petroglyphs. The really cool thing about it is most experts think they're somewhere between 500 and 1,000 years old. Definitely putting it in the oldest man-made artifact category here for Lancaster County. But the interesting thing about it is, it's a prehistoric culture. So we just don't know. And there's been indigenous people here in this part of Pennsylvania for about 10,000 years. So they could easily be, much, much older than 1,000 years. We're just not sure. So it's pretty exciting to think that, these could be, very, very old. While we're on the topic of the Susquehanna, kind of three fun facts about the Susquehanna River that kind of fit into this. One, the Susquehanna is the oldest major river system in the world. It's somewhere between 250 and 500 million years old. Just as like a frame of reference, the Nile is only 30 million years old. Some geologists think that the river might be even older than the Appalachian Mountains. So we're talking an old, ancient river system. Interestingly enough, William Penn had this bold idea of creating a new Philadelphia, and he was going to put it just north of modern-day Turkey Hill on the banks of the Susquehanna River. But what he didn't know is sort of fun fact number 3, and that is that the Susquehanna is the longest unnavigable river in the United States. Explorer John Smith learned that the hard way in 1608 when he was making his map of the Susquehanna and realized that you can't get all that far. And he stopped at Smith Falls, which is modern day Conowingo Dam. But these petroglyphs are littered with all these markings. And the Native Americans, for the most part, are drawing things that they see in their everyday life. A lot of animal tracks, turkey, deer, bear, There's human footprints. They're drawing the animals that they see. So again, they're drawing deer and fox. There's one of the early pictures we saw was a man in a canoe, which is pretty cool because that's kind of how you get out there still today. Now, some people feel that and they ask, like, well, are these petroglyphs? Are they just graffiti? Is it just Native American graffiti? I mean, what does a bored teenage Native American do? There's no Xbox, there's no internet. Like, well, just go out there and carve something on that rock. But again, archaeologists think that is definitely not the case. A lot of these petroglyphs have meanings, and so a little while ago we just saw a photo, and there are these like two squiggly lines, and they are either a snake, probably a snake, but maybe a riverbank, and they actually line up with the equinox. And then at a slightly different angle is a single squiggly line. Again, most likely a snake, but it could be a river. And that lines up with the solstice. And so these are, humans that are very in tune with the natural world around them, the things that they're living with. They understand, the seasons and the movement of the moon and the sun. And so, these rocks are definitely not just graffiti, but, significant things for people, for them at this time. But one of the things that I think is interesting is, for the most part, these Native Americans are carving things that they're seeing in their everyday life, like I mentioned, and things that we still see today, like deer and turkey, birds and people in canoes. And then they have some very interesting carvings, like what some people believe is a Wendigo, and sort of this tall, lanky man, sort of with long arms and antlers on its head. And supposedly this is sort of like a Bigfoot creature, a very tall, lanky, emaciated person with these antlers. And supposedly, the winter kind of hunts men. So I think it's interesting that, they're carving things that they see, and then they've got, a thing like this Wendigo out there that we would say definitely doesn't exist. And yet they've got this, mythological creature, carved on the rock. So, it's probably just, a tall tale or a legend, but it's pretty neat that those things are there. But without a doubt, the neatest thing about visiting the petroglyphs is, when you stand on the rock and you look west towards York County, the view hasn't changed much in 1,000 years. There's really no houses in that direction that you can see. It's still forest covered. And I'm thinking, wow, here I am 1,000 years later, and I'm seeing the exact same thing that, people before me saw in this exact same spot. I know for sure someone stood here, and I can see that. And who knows, 1,000 years from now, other people could be taking out their, maybe their hoverboards at that point, but coming out there, standing at that rock, looking west and seeing the exact same thing, that I'm seeing now. It's sort of this neat, shared experience over, time and space in this one location. A really, really cool thing and place to go and visit right here in Lancaster County on the Susquehanna River, just below the dam.
So that is very, very cool. And I love what you said about, when you get out there, you can observe what you feel previous man, woman, child, looked at, saw, experienced. I did that last summer. We were going to make it an annual tradition. We go up to New York to Association Island, which is this island out in the middle of Lake Ontario. Very cool. It's like you're in the Bahamas. The water is so clear. But near there are all these caves and rock formations, and you actually like really walk down in, and you're 30, 40 feet below the current grade. And I'm just sitting there like, this is where previous man, like, they got their water from. This is maybe where they hung out. This is maybe where they cooked meals. Pretty neat. So question for you, obviously, Safe Harbor Dam wasn't around when these were made.
No.
Are we thinking that, yeah, right. Are we thinking that these petroglyphs were where the rocks where they've been carved in, placed on, or are we thinking it's the same kind of destination where they would have had to canoe out? Or are we thinking that maybe it was more accessible with land at the time?
So in the summer, if you kind of go below Holtwood, you can almost like walk across the river, sort of jumping from large rock to large rock. So there's a high probability that in the summer, prior to 1904, I think, when they put Holtwood and then Safe Harbor in the 1930s, that they may have been able to definitely wade out, or perhaps kind of jump from rock to rock. In the spring or winter, they're probably out there via some kind of canoe or log, because the water would have been colder or deeper. But yeah, the river was much more shallow in that area, with even more rocks. I went out just a few weeks ago. Holtwood was having a low water event, so they were doing some maintenance on the dam, and the river was about 5 feet lower than it normally is, for that maintenance. So a few of us went out in hopes of seeing some petroglyphs, because when there are more, but when they built the dams, they were flooded. A couple were removed. You can go to the Conestoga Area Historical Society and see them. I believe there's a few on display at the State Museum. But many of them were just flooded over. And so even Big Indian Rock and Little Indian Rock supposedly have some that are below the water line. So we went out, and what I didn't know was just how much mud was going to be caked on the boulders below what was normally the water line. But we were able to find one. I had a bucket and washed and washed and washed. We were able to wash some mud away, and we found a little stick figure guy that is traditionally probably lower than the water level. So that was really neat to be able to go out and see that. What I didn't know was just how much more dangerous or rapid the water would be during that low water event. I thought it would be a lot calmer. We almost flipped the canoe once. So in that photo there, you can just make out like the trestle at the mouth of the Conestoga. There's probably like a comet, again, kind of looking towards the Lancaster County side of the river there.
That is very, very cool.
I'm frightened by the antlered Wendigo creature.
That's an interesting one. It doesn't get nearly as much play as your Bigfoot, but it kind of that Wendigo, kind of a Bigfoot creature with the antlers, and he kind of hunts men in the winter. I think it might have to do more with sort of that, that seasonal affection disorder that people get sad, how they kind of get down in the winter. And I think that's sort of how they explained, some of their, Native American friends or relatives just sort of disappearing in the winter, when people kind of get sometimes a little down and low there, or just bad things happen in the winter. And I think that was sort of how they explained it. But again, they're only carving things that they see, and then they put this guy out there on the rock. So, it's kind of an interesting mystery. Yeah.
There's a difference in telling a tall tale and carving a tall tale. So the mystery remains, I guess, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, Adam, we appreciate you being so passionate about the history in the community and doing this segment with us. Hopefully we can have you back. If you're into it, we're into it.
Great. I'd love to come back.
More. You can connect more with Adam, unchartedlancaster.com. Check out all that he's doing there. And Adam, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. Another great one.
Hey, thanks, Jeff and Ben. I appreciate your invitation. Thank you very much.
I don't know about you, man, but that Wendigo thing, that's pretty freaking, that's neat. I got to think there was Wendigos back in the day. I mean, think about it. If you're going to, in your day, all things about surviving as a Native American, right? You got to feed yourself. You got to clothe yourself. You got to shelter yourself.
All challenges.
All of it's done. And you're going to go like, hey, Dad, I want to play a joke on Jeff and Ben 5,000 years from now. I'm going to do a Wendigo. A what? Yeah, just follow me. I got to think it was maybe real. At least in some evolutionary aspect of some animal. Yep. At some point, a gnarly, bulky deer stood up.
Right.
and
it had claws.
And that guy or gal saw it.
It had claws.
Wendigo. That's what I think. At any rate,
I'm gonna have nightmares. Remember, this show is also available as a podcast. You can find all the links at lancasterconnects.com. Remember to please like and share this video. Leave a comment and tell us how we're doing. Tell a friend about the show. The more people that can see the show, the more impact we can have in the Lancaster community.